So why you lose motivation after a psychedelic spiritual awakening? Any awakening for that matter, but usually the psychedelic ones that come on real quick. So if you've lost your motivation after an awakening, I promise you one thing, that you're not broken. You haven't lost, like this drive. You're in this process of transformation. Okay? This isn't the same as depression. It's really the death of your old self and the birth of something deeper. But as something new is being born, it kind of takes some time to get its footing, to get its bearings on this new reality. So I'm going to talk about a bunch of takeaways, 7 in total, and I'll relate it to like a lot of them to Carl Jung and some of his thoughts on the shadow as well, just to kind of make it more interesting. So awakening can feel empty and not enlightening. Okay, and that's usually the first stage of it. So many are expecting awakening to immediately bring purpose, but it often brings stillness, numbness, fog, confusion, remnants of your old beliefs you're still trying to cling on to. This is part of the collapse of ego-based meaning. So a lot of us, our life, we've grown these tendencies due to fear and trauma and things happening to us to now respond, trying to be seen and heard, trying to feel safe. And we build these lives around that. Jung said, enlightenment doesn't come by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And so we think awakening is about bliss or joy. You get there, but it's actually about facing your own shadows. And the emptiness you feel after this experience is actually the space that's being made for something real to emerge. So a lot of our goals were built by your ego. I want to make this much money. I want to prove myself. I want to win. I want to compete. I want to feel safe. Now that the mask has dropped, these goals don't resonate anymore. It's like, I don't actually want that. I know what this feels like. A lot of businesses I had, very transactional because I just wanted to make money. After I started waking up, I can't do this anymore. And there was all this fear around, who would I be if I wasn't this? If I wasn't an athlete, or if I wasn't this business person or entrepreneur. I promise you, you're in the sacred void. You're not failing, okay? So Carl Jung called this the phase between ego and the self, okay? And it's a weird place to be, but it's super important. It feels like limbo, but it is a rite of passage. Jung said, the greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved, only outgrown. So we're thinking of like a destination. Once I do this, this will happen. I'm going to figure this out. No, but through that process, you grow into someone new. Okay. So it's not a problem to fix. It's a threshold that you're going to grow and move through. So you're evolving beyond these old rules. So you grew up life with one set of rules, and now you're figuring out what this new set of rules is on this new evolved version of yourself. The old rules that govern your identity before, and all the rules that you figured out to feel safe or anything based in fear, and now you're moving somewhere new. And stillness is often misdiagnosed in modern life, okay? And this is another one thing that happens in this phase, because our world treats the pause as laziness. You feel like I should be doing more, I should be doing something. It's like this goo phase, like the caterpillar in a cocoon, which is essential. And a caterpillar, it eats, it consumes, it does all these things, and then it goes kind of to sleep. And slowly the cells wake up, the new cells, and they start eating the old cells. And it turns into this nutritional soup that creates new caterpillars. Think of yourself in that phase. So Jung also said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul, okay? So stillness scares the modern mind. That's why we're so distracted. We overwork, we're addicted to things, TV, sex, internet, food. And sometimes it's also felt like laziness, like we have these programs from the old self that I need to be doing something. And that might what it look like from the outside, but the deep inner work is actually happening below the surface when we slow down. So Jung also said that shadow integration is the hidden gold, like bringing these things and integrating them into our life. He also warned that bypassing the darkness skips the transformation. So you can't just jump to that next stage, okay? Facing repressed emotions is the path to wholeness. And this is something that's hard. And we don't like to feel these repressed emotions. Sometimes psychedelics will bring it up, or breathwork, but sitting in that river of misery, trying to cross the other side, and you can't get there because the waters get really rough. It's just sitting there and being present to it and starting to kind of contemplate on them. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it would direct your life and you'll call it fate. I see a lot of people in the spiritual community, I trust the universe and this and that, and they're just kind of like a tumbleweed going through the desert, okay? So we got to really sit with these things. So darkness you're avoiding is actually what's shaping your life. If you face it, you reclaim your power. And this is the alchemy of shadow work. I see many people going to ayahuasca and they're scared and they've done a few ceremonies. This scary thing keeps coming up. And I tell them all the time, when something scary comes up, just approach it. Allow yourself to see what it is. And so many times they said it was the biggest breakthrough because they realized there was actually nothing to be afraid of, or something that was not as scary as they thought it would be. And you're going to stop chasing clarity and start feeling this inner alignment. Your action no longer are driven by fear. So a new motivation is actually what's starting to emerge, coming from your soul and not your ego. So what happens? You stop chasing clarity and start feeling this inner alignment, right? You're not playing by the old rules anymore. And so as you start sitting in this kind of new space, you focus on this alignment that starts to hum, and your actions are no longer driven by fear. And when you can be intentional and get a clear why and sit with that, and intention is the way you do things, it can drive your actions now into a whole new stratosphere. And you create from a whole new place when you're creating from faith and love and passion and inspiration versus fear. And what that means is a lot of people who are scared, are doing things to kind of like combat that fear. And this is what happened to me. When I started waking up, started like doing this inner work, I closed a bunch of businesses, ended some relationships, walked away from big investments because I knew that if I was like fear-based and had to get that back, I'd be stuck there for a long time. It was hard, it was uncomfortable, but as I saw clearly, I knew like, this is it. Like, and it's paid off 10 times more, in every single way. This new energy is quieter, it's deeper, it's more sustainable. And Jung said that who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. I love that quote so much. So your motivation is now coming from within, not from proving yourself, not trying to be this thing, like this athlete that had to impress his dad and ended up becoming the best in the world. It still wasn't good enough. When you shift from external chasing to internal listening, you wake up to who you really are. Another version of that is being an entrepreneur. You're playing by these rules of fear. Like, I need to prove to my dad, I need to be seen and heard, whatever. And they do these things and they become superstars and influencers, and they're still never happy. So another big thing is you don't need to get your spark back. Some people feel like they lost their spark because you're actually growing, you're igniting a new flame. One that doesn't like flicker in these external storms because you're guided from a different place. You're never gonna lose the skills you acquired on your journey. So all the things that helped you to get smart, to be resilient, to be a hard worker, whatever it is, problem solver, like the best athletes, like I mentioned, or business people that were driven by fear, now you can actually experience fulfillments, and not momentary dopamine hits like making a deal or winning a race or whatever, like actual fulfillment. There's a huge difference because you don't need to prove anything to anyone. When you're in alignment, that's the most amazing feeling. You're in the present moment, you're doing things out of passion, and it is long lasting and fulfilling and purpose led. Your ambition becomes devotion, not to impress, but to express yourself and to live life the way it's meant to be as creators of our reality. So Jung said the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And this is the opportunity after you've had this kind of thing where you feel like I've lost my motivation. It's about the caterpillar again, kind of reforming to something new. And those wings will kind of spread out and you'll fly into like a life that's so unimaginable from the life that you used to live. You can hear the birds chirping, you're flying, you're visiting the flowers. Before you're crawling like a caterpillar, consuming everything, can barely see until you're like eating so much where you fall asleep into a dream and you wake up with wings. Okay, so you're in that cocoon phase right now, probably. So you're not regressing. You're just really getting ready to light this new frame. It's your true becoming. You're not lost. You're arriving. So trust yourself. Okay, be present and don't rush it. Don't rush it, because rushing is like a quality of immaturity. In the Gene Keys, there's one of the Gene Keys. If you haven't heard of Gene Keys, Richard Rudd, amazing stuff, inner journey. I won't talk too much about it now, but he talks about this one shadow of immaturity. And it's like being like a child and what the child want. They're kind of erratic and they're impatient and they want things now. And this is about being patient and allowing things to kind of come to the surface to create from a different place, from what your mind just kind of thinking on the autopilot, okay? So I'd love to hear what you think. If you agreed, disagreed, if you think I'm completely crazy, put in the comments below. I love to learn. I love you other people's perspective because it helps to broaden my perspective as well. So if you want some tools on breathwork to help get you clear, especially if you're going through this phase right now, there's some links below to get some free breathwork tracks to get you started. Gio from Elemental Rhythm, thanks for watching this video, and hopefully I'll see you in another one.